Hello, and welcome to episode 2 of the FanTeam podcast by Fantasy Football Hub. My name is Andrew, and I'm joined by FPL legend Wesley Prickett, otherwise known as FPL Heisenberg, with a superb FPL record with 6 successive finishes in the top 35k. Wes, how are you finding it adjusting your FPL skills to FanTeam?
Yes, hello Fergie. Yeah, fairly easily actually, because of obviously the similarities between the game. I'm trying to view it as FPL. Obviously, on the last pod we talked about a few of the slight differences, and that will maybe come into my thinking a little bit. But basically, your main source of points are exactly the same as FPL. So I'm picking an FPL squad basically.
Awesome, mate. Good stuff. So in our first bumper episode, we gave an introduction to FanTeam, the rules, the scoring system, how it slightly differs from FPL, and we took a look at life-changing prizes on offer before running through the player prices and sharing our very first team drafts, which will probably have changed a lot, I would guess, Wes, to the
Yeah,
agreed.
mine's changed quite a lot. I think, like you said, we'll get onto that a bit later, and hopefully we can quiz each other and maybe make each other change it again after the pod as well.
Absolutely. We should mention the game is now live, so if you want to take a look at the rules and prices for yourself, then click on the top link in the description below. So to clarify, there is a buy-in involved, so it is for over 18s only and be gamble aware. In the links provided, there is a 150% deposit bonus. So if you decide to play FanTeam for €25, you would receive around €30 to use on their sportsbook. Terms and conditions apply. If you are new to Fancy Football Hub, please remember to click the subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen and to press the like button if you enjoy our content. And don't forget to download our new free app, which includes everything our website offers. Just search for Fantasy Football Hub or wherever you get your apps. But just a quick reminder of the incredible prizes on offer. As you can see on the screen now for our YouTube watchers, there's a €1 million prize pot with first place being €200,000, second place being €100,000, third being 60,000, fourth 40,000, and there are prizes all the way down to 5,659th place. We consider that it's capped at 75,000 entries. There's a really, really good chance of getting in the cash if you can apply your FPL skills. Okay, so Wes, before we dive into your team, what are your thoughts on navigating through the opening game weeks? Obviously, with there being a blank game week in game week 1 for the Manchester teams, Burnley and Aston Villa.
Yeah, so it's a completely different season than start to the season, I should say, than we've seen for many, many years in fantasy games. So yeah, there's a few ways of playing it. I'm still weighing them up myself. So potentially putting the likes of some of the cheaper options at City or United on your bench in game week 1, and they're bringing them in obviously week 2. Or potentially just using your free transfers in sort of week 2, week 3 to bring in the likes of Bruno, De Bruyne, or Foden, etc. So I still don't know exactly how I'm going to play it. I do usually like to hold off on playing my wildcard just because I'm a kind of cautious fantasy player. But whether that's the right tactic this year, who knows? But ideally for me, I think what I'll do is uh, save a transfer in week 2, and then in week 3 use 2 free transfers to bring in maybe a Man City player and a Man United player, and potentially even a -4 at that point to cover the big guns from those teams and still save the wild card for just a 4-point hit. So yeah, what about yourself?
Yeah, so just to touch then, if it's okay, on your team first then. Could
Yeah,
you
sure.
read out your team for our podcast listeners, if that's okay?
Yes, absolutely. So in goal, I've got Eurasia from Crystal Palace, and his understudy Hennessy is on my bench. I'm going to go for the set and forget keeper strategy. In defence, I'm starting with Trent Alexander-Arnold, Doherty, and Saliba, the new Arsenal signing. In midfield, I've got Salah, Armstrong, Pepe, and Sojcek. And up front, I've got Ings, Aubameyang, Werner, and my bench is Thomas from Leicester, who is the left back. He's 4.5 million. Chilwell's obviously been sold. Vinagre and Stevens.
Well, the first thing that jumps out for me there is you just said you'll be going into game week 2 with no Man United or no Man City players. Is that right?
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if I stick with sort of this plan at the minute and this draft I've got, I wouldn't have any players unless obviously I made a transfer in week 2, which is a
Yeah.
possibility. I could potentially do, a couple of transfers, or maybe just do one. I've got Pepe at 8 million, so I could afford the likes of Foden and obviously Greenwood. Is obviously zero point 0.5 more expensive, but I could potentially do a -4 at that stage. So yeah, I'm not sure on the exact strategy I will go for, but at the minute, no City or United players. City obviously have Wolves in
Yeah.
week 2, so I don't mind holding off on City for 1 week. And United have Palace at home, and Palace uh, could they could struggle in that game. So yeah, I might look to bring a Man United player in straight away.
So you're
Yeah,
captaining Salah then in game week 1. I can
yeah.
see. What about game week 2 then?
So well, at the minute it's on. It's like you say, Aubameyang is a very strong candidate for the captaincy in week 1.
Yeah,
Yeah, at the minute, obviously, I do want to stress this is just a draft, so captaincy will go down to the wire,
of course.
and it could potentially end up on Aubameyang or Salah. But yeah, it will be one of those two guys. And then week 2, possibly Aubameyang. Um, Depending on obviously, I'll probably judge it on a little bit of form at that point. If Salah or Aubameyang explodes in week 1, then they'll probably get the captaincy week 2.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, let's just have a little look. Obviously, Liverpool have got Chelsea away in week 2, so don't obviously love that. Although obviously we know last year Chelsea's defence was pretty suspect. And then obviously Aubameyang's got West Ham at home, so Aubameyang does have the better fixture there. So yeah, week 2 at the minute it will be Aubameyang, unless Salah looks on fire and Chelsea looks suspect at the back again.
Okay, so looking in onto my strategy and
Yeah,
initial draft, I've been thinking, I think experienced FPL players tend to not use their wild cards very, very early. And that is always in my mind because I'm always learning, right? I always want to learn, off players like yourselves, and they're better managers as well. However, this season, and coming round to it, so I've built my team here, which I'll run through in a second. I've built it on the basis of going into game week 2, using a transfer, maybe even a hit, getting some Man United players, but I'll touch on that now. But you know what? The more and more I'm thinking about it, I am very tempted to just build a very good game week 1 team, and then wild cards into game week 2, and there's several reasons for that. Firstly, obviously, I don't really want to go into game week 2 without any Man United players at home to Palace. I'm sure that Palace
yeah,
will be stronger than they were towards the end of last season. Didn't they lose their last, was it 8 or 9 games of the season? I think they lost 8 and drew against Spurs, didn't they?
yeah. They finished poorly, limped over the line. Sort of, they usually relied on their defensive solidity, didn't they? But
Yeah,
even towards the end of last season, that had gone out the window. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see if that sort of carries over
yeah.
uh, into the new season.
I'm not in a massive rush to get in City players. As you mentioned about Wolves, I completely
Yeah,
understand that. And Wolves are a very, very good defensive team, even though City scored up against them in both games last season, I think. But I do think my main issue is going to be price rises. So you've mentioned there wait until game
yeah,
week 3, for example, or even 4, potentially to get, the full players you want. I'm assuming it'll be players like, I don't know, Bruno, De Bruyne, maybe Foden, maybe
yeah.
Martial, maybe Rashford, etc. By
Exactly. Yeah,
that time, all those players may have increased point 0.3 or point 0.4, even more potentially. So
yeah,
this is another reason I think price rises do tend to be a lot more aggressive at the start of the season. There's a lot everyone's playing. We're expecting, just thinking back to FPL now a little bit, and FanTeam, it's going to be growing year on year in terms, in terms of users,
user base. Yeah,
and probably the algorithms aren't probably tweaked to accommodate that at the start. They don't know
yeah,
how many they're going to have, right? So just thinking that in game week 2, everyone will be, I say everyone, right? A large population will be bringing in Bruno Fernandes, Kevin De
mm.
Bruyne, and this is my concern, I suppose, is that
So yeah, a wildcard tactic could be good early doors, then, especially like you say, because the users growing in both games, and they'll be most active in the first few game weeks before
yeah,
some people sort of give up on their teams.
yeah,
So yeah, that's when the prices will be most volatile. You would guess. So yeah, it could be a really good strategy. I suppose if you do that, your draft now will change quite a lot because you will
it
literally
would.
focus on one game week.
So
So that'll be interesting to see.
yeah, definitely. So my draft at the moment does have the plan of using three transfers, into game week
Yeah.
2 and game week 3. So my draft at the moment, I've got Whiter in goals. I have got Meslier of Leeds as a 4 million. I think it sounds like, looking at Leeds forums, he's going to be a starter, so he could be
Oh,
a
really?
really cheap option. They're my keepers. I've currently got Alexander Arnold, Bellerin, I think, who you tipped up in one of your
Yeah.
articles for the Hub,
Yeah.
Vinagre, and Johnson at the moment as a 4 million
Cheapy.
West Ham defensive option.
Yeah.
That could change depending on news if he plays, etc. I've then got a midfield of Salah as captain at home to Leeds. I've got Son, who has started off the pre-season really well. He finished
Yeah.
the season playing up front with Kane as well, so I think Son's actually going to be a really good option into the season. I've got Armstrong of Atlanta, who finished the
Yeah.
season really strongly. He's a good price. I've got Southcheck, as the real budget option there, but
Absolutely.
his goal scoring record is insane. I was looking, he
Yeah.
scored something like over 30 goals in the last 2 seasons or something, in previous clubs and things. So he could
Brilliant.
actually
Nice.
be better than we actually thought.
Yes.
Um, and at the moment, I've got Vardy and Werner up front. So Vardy, I've got West Brom first game, just
Yeah.
signed a new contract. I'm
I
not
do
sure
like
whether I'll
Vardy.
stay with him. And I think Werner is going to be steal this season. I just think with all those players around him, good
Yeah.
fixtures, should be on penalties as well, I would guess. He's going to be the
Yeah.
main man.
Good stats coming over from the Bundesliga as well, where he smashed it, obviously. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then I've got Foden then first on my bench.
Yeah, I like that.
So obviously he will go then into game week, go into my team.
Mm.
I've then got Mitchell, Eric Mitchell, who is
Yeah.
Van Aanholt's replacement. And Van Aanholt's
Yeah.
injured for the start of the season. I think we saw that Nathan Ferguson was everyone's hope at right back, but he wasn't in their squad because he's still
Yeah.
recovering from an old injury. So
Yeah, absolutely. I've been on Mitchell for that reason, just because the Ferguson sort of
exactly, yeah,
people touting him is just sort of maybe fan talk, whereas
yeah.
with Mitchell he is more like start. I do worry a little bit about, is it Reader? I really don't know how to say the name. It's like
Oh,
Riederveld.
Riedewald, yeah, yeah.
Riederveld. He played left back in a friendly for Palace, which is sent to keep an eye on. Again, the sort of fan forums don't think he will play there long term. So I think Mitchell is a good choice. I might even look to get him into my team if I for my bench actually. That's a good shout, because I could swap out Thomas and then have that
Yeah.
0.5 million, which means if I did want to do Pepe to Greenwood, I could do it in one move. So yeah,
And this just kind of heightens my. Every time I talk more about Wildcard, it's heightening my appeal, right? Because if we get the wrong 4 million, you can just adjust it on the wildcard immediately.
yeah,
Whereas, again, if you're holding off, people like Mitchell, if Mitchell starts game week 1, he can clean sheet to get some bonus points, right?
he's going to go
His
up.
price go through the roof.
Yeah,
And at the moment I've got Zikovic, who's just like a 4 million bench fodder as a
yeah,
striker. But my plan there going into game week 2 would be, I need to be careful with the rises because I've got the exact money. It would be to take out Vardy and Son for a hit,
hmm
or Bruno and Martial. So going into game week 2, I would have Bruno
yeah,
Martial nice and early. I would also have Foden as well.
yeah.
It would be a hit, but
I
again,
guess you could risk it. You could, obviously. I'm not one of those managers who likes to do early transfers a lot, but I guess for you, obviously, because of the money situation, you could do it early doors.
I'd have to, I think.
Yeah, and then if it backfired in terms of injuries to the rest of your squad, you're already fairly happy to wildcard week 2 anyway. So
Yeah,
you could then just hit the button wildcard and not work, and that's sort of your backup plan anyway. Yeah.
so yeah, that's the plan at the moment. But
Would you
there are.
bench Soychek sorry to interrupt.
Sorry,
Would you
right.
bench Soychek in week 2?
I haven't thought of my exact team yet for week 2, but looking at it, probably would. I'd probably.
Should have quite a strong
Yeah,
front 8, and I guess West Ham's fixtures turn in week 2, so
they do.
that
Yeah.
that's a perfect little 4.5 million on the bench, good option. But you probably wouldn't want him starting too much, which is something I probably need to think about, because at the minute for me he's going to be starting week 2 onwards. So I'm not sure how I feel about Soychek being a starter in my fan team.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's good for you having Foden there.
That's a good shout. Probably, actually thinking about it, probably might start, is at the moment I've got Johnson of West Ham in
Of
his
course,
defence in
yeah,
a 4-4-2, so I'd take him out the Southcheck probably. But I do think the Southcheck, I think just looking at it, I think he offers a lot of potential anyway. Even as a player, it only
yeah,
takes a hit. He's was he like 6'7" or something like that? He's
Yeah,
always going to be a threat, and
yeah,
he's a really nice player as well. So I think
yeah.
he's always a threat.
Well, yeah, last season he scored from a corner against Chelsea, which was then was quite
It
unluckily
was.
ruled out for VAR. Then 2 minutes later, he scored the pretty much an identical goal. So he's definitely a threat from corners, and even the bigger teams can concede from corners. Yeah, I must admit I completely forgot that he was obviously playing 4-4-2 for a second. So of
Yeah.
course, yeah, just swap out Johnson, and that's perfect. Really nice.
But I would say, as I said, since I've done this draft, I think I'm more keen than ever to probably
The
actually
wild card.
play the wildcard. Like
Yeah,
I say, I'm very much thinking FPL and FanTeam here because my
yeah.
FPL team is very, very similar to this. I think the only
Same for me. Yeah,
yeah, I think the only difference is really is the prices are a bit heavier on FanTeam on the premium players, which I personally like. So it kind of makes it a little bit harder.
yeah,
Like Werner's an extra million,
yeah,
Vardy's extra 0.5, Son's an extra 0.5.
yeah.
Um,
Which, like you say, is better because if you're going to be putting some effort
exactly,
into fantasy and FPL this year, like we do, then it's going to benefit us players rather than the casuals who can just stick in all the premium players without much thought. So yeah, it's definitely a benefit if you're going to be taking things seriously.
definitely. And so another reason I think there is a good reason to wildcard earlier in FanTeam is
Mm,
generally managers, they use their first wild card whenever they like, but then they tend to save their second wild card specifically for the chip the second half of the season. Or
yeah,
you wouldn't have that issue in FanTeam, and I really prefer that because I don't know how you feel about it, but being a bit of a purist, I see the chips in FPL as a bit of like their fun and,
gimmicky.
and trinkets, but it takes away from you end up completely changing your team
Yeah,
just for one game week, and you're kind of
yeah,
stuck with it then. So
yeah. You're not necessarily picking fantasy players you really like for a longer period. It's like a free hit, for example. You just pick in there for that one week, whereas
this is
this is
it.
a real proper season long game where you have to. There's no sort of short fixes, quick fixes, and lucky. You can kind of get lucky with, say, a triple captain
Exactly.
if they absolutely smash it in a game week. And like last year in FPL, what was it? Mane in double game week 25 versus Salah. It was like almost a coin toss, and Mane got injured the first game and gets 1 point, whereas uh, other people got Salah who tripled his 16 up to 48. So it was a really big swing on an injury,
Yeah,
which is already a big enough. If without the triple captain on just normal captaincy, that's a big enough swing to make it beneficial for the person who has done well. The triple captain really sort of kicked Mane when he was down, sort of thing. So yeah, I agree on the. I prefer FPL and FanTeam without the chips personally, but you have to adjust, I guess.
so this leads you to think that an earlier second wild card is probably a very, very viable option because you're not
Mm,
having to wait those blank game weeks, double game weeks,
yeah,
all this sort of thing. So no, I think I'm talking myself into it more and more at the moment,
yeah,
Wes, but we'll see. And there's the obvious risk, right? So not get too deep into it, but the kind of second wave risk of COVID. Do expect disruption. You can't really plan for it. And I was talking on the FPL podcast with the guys on there around holding back the wild card for that.
mm,
But you just can't plan for that because
no,
it's unprecedented, right? So last season the season just stopped. This year, everyone's kind of a lot more prepared, and we may see fixtures postponed, we may see double game weeks and things, but I don't think it's going to land. There's like one massive double game week because of it. It's going to be fixtures just moved around all over the place. When you have like FA Cup replays and things,
yeah,
fixtures are just kind of moved around a bit more. So, and I read this morning as well actually that the Premier League are making plans that if the season does have to finish early, to crown the champions as champions at that point,
mm,
relegation be sorted at that point, which could potentially mean, that we don't even get to game week 30, 33,
yeah,
35, etc. I don't want to dwell, on the point too much. Obviously, there's much bigger things, much more important things with COVID and things, rather than football. But obviously, we're talking about in the context
yeah.
of fantasy football. What are your thoughts on that, Wes?
Yeah, I guess like you say, if the season was to sort of finish abruptly early, you want to be making a good start, and therefore, like you say, saving a wild card till right near your second wild card till say the last few game weeks might not be something that you need to do. So I guess if you're going along the lines of your strategy of a wild card in week 2, you could then potentially use your second wild card, say I don't know, week 22, and set yourself up for the rest of the season. And usually by the last few game weeks, you can you'll know you'll already have the good players in your team, so you won't necessarily need a wild card. So yeah, I think just go for it like that. Don't be afraid to use your wild cards. And if the season finishes abruptly, then hopefully you'll be high up in the FanTeam rankings and hopefully cash.
Okay, so that is it from us for this episode. Hopefully it's whetted your appetites enough to give FanTeam a go. Remember, it's capped at 75,000 entries, so to start drafting your team, make sure you click in the link at the top of the description. Now, thank you so much, Wes, for joining me. Where can people get hold of you?
Absolute pleasure. Thanks, mate. Yes, so obviously I'm fairly involved with Fantasy Football Hub, so you might see my content on there. And also my Twitter and Instagram handle is FPL_Heisenberg. So yeah, you can find me there as well.
Cool. So if you've liked what you've watched, please press the like button and remember to subscribe to the channel in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. And if you're listening on a podcast, please rate the podcast and leave a comment. So Fantasy Football Hub have partnered up with FanTeam and will be providing regular content throughout pre-season and during the season to help you try to get your hands on the new improved and life-changing €200,000 first prize that is in place for the new season. Remember to follow our main FPL account on Twitter at FFH_HQ and also our new dedicated FanTeam Twitter account at FFH_FanTeam. We'll be posting our dedicated FanTeam content, including our podcasts, articles, and team reveals. We hold regular competitions on these accounts, prizes such as free hub memberships and free FanTeam entries. So make sure to follow and join in with these. We're also on Instagram and TikTok at FFH_HQ. Our website is fantasyfootballhub.co.uk, where you will find masses of free pre-season fantasy football content and everything you need for fantasy football all under one roof, including player comparison tools, the fixture ticker, the stats, top player team reveals, and much, much more. We also have our new free app for iOS and Android, which you can find in the App Store searching for Fantasy Football Hub. We are currently running a 25% pre-season discount for new memberships. If you want to take advantage of this, click on the link in the description or click on the link appearing above my head now. On the website and app, you can find an introduction to FanTeam article series talking you through the game with our hints and tips on starting off in this brilliant game. All the links for everything we have discussed are in the description below for our YouTube watchers. If you play FPL, make sure you subscribe to our main FPL channel, which is also in the description. And we'll be back for a final pre-season podcast in the days leading up to the new season with our final locked-in teams. Until then, thank you and goodbye for now.